Would you use a nuclear weapon against Iran? You posted on Truth Social a few weeks ago.
We don't need it. Why do I need it? Why would a stupid question like that be asked? Why would I use a nuclear weapon when we've totally, in a very conventional way, decimated them without it? No, I wouldn't use it. A nuclear weapon should never be allowed to be used by anybody.
Hey guys, and welcome to another huge episode of Triggered. I hope everyone's doing well, and we have a big one today. Because two things are happening at the exact same time. The left smear machine is getting exposed as a fraud, and America's enemies are getting reminded what all the weakness is over. We're going to get into the SPLC indictment. That's a big one. The Southern Poverty Law Center. Remember that one? Oh, they're sticking up for regular people because the DOJ and the FBI now say that the left has literally been funding the KKK, which actually holds true because that's the history of the KKK and who was funding them. They've been funding hate groups they claimed to be against. They literally are funding them so that they could create chaos and then be like pretending to be against it. It's really wild. And it's, as always, one giant hoax and fraud. Through shady banking arrangements, transactions, informants, all designed to create a fictitious enemy that was used to push things like Charlottesville and so much more. So yeah, there's a lot to get into tonight. So guys, make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing so you never miss one of these major episodes, okay? Just hit the little like button right now. Do it before you get done with the show. Send it to your friends. It's that simple. You guys are a part of that. If you missed the show here on Rumble, go over to Apple, go over to Spotify, and catch it there, okay? If you get your podcast that way, if their friends get their podcast that way, just let them know. For all of the top headlines that we cover on the show, go over and check out my news app, MXM News, where you can get the mainstream news without the mainstream bias. And of course, don't forget about our brave sponsors for having the guts to support this program. That takes a lot sometimes. And speaking of which, guys, don't forget about All Family Pharmacy. You've seen how hard it can be to access important medications like ivermectin, and it's critical to have on hand these kind of medications for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. That's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and make it easy to get hard-to-find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting rooms, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharmacy even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com/Don Jr., DONJR, for 10% off your first order. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Don Jr. Don't forget and check them out. And guys, we have another familiar face sponsoring the show now, Goldco. Gold just surged past $5,000 an ounce. Silver blew past 100. And the U.S. just added silver to the critical mineral list, meaning it's now considered crucial for American security and economic survival. This isn't speculation, this is real. That's why I've renewed my partnership with the #1 rated gold company, Goldco. A+ rated by the BBB, the Better Business Bureau, and they've helped Americans place over $3 billion in gold and silver. So visit donjrgold.com, DONJRgold.com, to get a free 2026 gold and silver kit. And because you're part of this audience, you get up to 10% back in bonus silver or gold just for getting started. Again, that's donjrgold.com. Do it now. Educate yourself. What do you have to lose? Now, let's get into it. Let's start with the SPLC. The Southern Poverty Law Center. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, which in Democrat language means the perfect vehicle for more fraud, because this one is almost too perfect. For years, the Southern Poverty Law Center has acted like one of the high priests of the American left. They smear people, they blacklist people, they put out target lists on prominent conservatives. Remember, they dubbed Charlie Kirk a terrorist or something like that. That's the Southern Poverty Law Center. They label parents and Christian conservatives and basically anyone else they don't like as dangerous, as threats to democracy, and of course, as racists. Now, the Justice Department and the FBI say the same organization was secretly funneling millions to extremist groups, including the KKK. I mean, you can't make it up. This wasn't some nonprofit that got a little sloppy. It was a racket. It was a criminal enterprise and much more. Check this out.
All right, Todd Blanche is the acting U.S. Attorney General, and he joins us now. Sir, it's good to see you again. This Southern Poverty Law Center story, of course, adds to just a tremendous amount of fraud that is being uncovered in the operation of our government, a lot of fraud in the affiliated NGOs with parts of our government as well. I want to start and just get your reaction to what you guys have found here.
It's good to be here. Thank you. Look, what the grand jury found in the indictment returned yesterday is something that should be shocking to everybody in this country. You have a situation where you have an organization actively raising money for years and years and years, promising that their sole purpose was to root out racism, mostly in the South. What you saw and what's publicly available is a lot of activism, a lot of articles, a lot of pushback towards anybody who's conservative. But it turns out that they were spending, in this case, over $3 million over about a 10-year period, actually paying individuals associated with the same right-wing groups that they are claiming to try to dismantle. I mean, that's the definition of a bait and switch or of a fraud, and it's something that the grand jury, there's a lot of work went into that case, and it's something that should be very concerning to everybody in this country.
Just think about that, guys. The people who built a business model around hunting right-wing racists, monsters, were paying the monsters. And that's according to the DOJ and the FBI and what they said this week. The people who sold moral panic to the country were apparently running a fraud behind the scenes, paying those to create the havoc that they were against. Totally corrupt in every possible way. And, unfortunately, totally in line with the left's playbook on pretty much everything else. And by the way, this blows up more than just one left-wing NGO. It blows up the media frauds who quoted them like it was the scripture, guys. It blows up the Democrats who used them as a political weapon. It blows up the entire donor activist racket that fed off their fake moral authority for years. Watch.
It was quite shocking to me to learn of the egregious violations of the law of the Southern Poverty Law Center was committing. And I think that's a story that should be on the front page of every newspaper in this country because they've obviously been duping their supporters and the American taxpayers for far too long. It's a criminal organization, clearly, and that's not our DOJ saying that or Todd Blanche saying that. That's a grand jury indictment saying that.
That is why they're panicking. Because the whole game only works if nobody ever checks under the hood. Call everyone racist, call everyone an extremist, call everyone a threat, and hope that no one notices that the people doing the accusing are all filthy themselves. Well, now people are actually noticing. The SPLC even had a KPI metric, okay? It's a number designed to reduce the number of whites in corporate America. I mean, that was their metric, okay? KPI is what used in like corporate America to be like, these are our goals. And their goal is basically to reduce the number of whites in corporate America, to reduce the number of European-based people in Europe. All the states, all the data based on lies, fraud, and criminality. Big banks donated to this group bigly. Big Democrat donors. Major corporations, all the ones you've heard of. BLM groups, all the fake hoaxes like Charlottesville, it was all fueled by dollars from the SPLC. Just think about it. The anti-racists were funding the racist groups to artificially prop them up and fuel the hate, fund the hate, put targets on conservatives. It was a giant circle of fraud. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars to several of these groups over a multi-year period. And, it's funny. When you think about it, and I've been seeing it, you go around the country, it's like, man, I've been at every conservative place in the world. I've been all these things. I've not seen any of this racism. I've not seen any things. Now we know why. They didn't really exist. They were just paying these people, the few lunatics that are out there, they were paying them to foment the hate that then the media would run with indefinitely and make it seem like this is a major thing in America. It's all over the place. It's only all over the place because they paid them to be louder and more vocal. They tried growing the enemy that they were combating. They're trying to claim it was for informants. Yeah, okay, sure. But it was to fuel the fire, to keep the groups running, to keep them being divisive, and to keep them in the news cycle. It's what the Democrat Party is based on. Fraud, creating fake enemies, fake victims, right? We've seen plenty of that. Fake funding networks, just like Act Blue, just like the hospice fraud, just like the daycare fraud, just like the Feeding Our Futures fraud. Ask yourself, is there any part of the Democrat machine that isn't propped up by fraud? It's all they seem to have. And while the whole fraud machine is blowing up here at home, look at what's happening overseas. Because for too long, our adversaries got very used to dealing with a weak America, a hesitant America, an apologetic and apologizing America. That version is gone. Now they're looking at a White House that actually understands leverage. And not fake leverage either. Real leverage. Oil, sanctions, pressure, blockades, power. And today's message in the Straits of Hormuz was as clear as it gets. If you're laying mines in one of the most important waterways on Earth, the United States Navy is not sending you a warning label. You're getting shot and you're getting sunk. That's how you restore deterrence. You make it unmistakably clear that America is back and in charge of the map. And it looks like the pressure is already showing up in the shipping lanes too. CENTCOM says 33 vessels have already been redirected under the blockade. Here's one in real time.
Motor vessel Majestic X, we intend to conduct the boarding of your vessel.
Because one of the big differences right now is that this administration understands what actual leverage and power really means. Economic pressure actually matters. Energy pressure matters. Making it impossible for your enemies to breathe matters.
Let's level set on where we are. As you all saw yesterday, President Trump announced an extension of the ceasefire. He's maintaining and generously offering a bit of flexibility to a regime who has been completely tarnished because of Operation Epic Fury. There's obviously a lot of internal division. This is a battle between the pragmatists and the hardliners in Iran right now, and the president wants a unified response. And so as we await that response, there's a ceasefire with the military and kinetic strikes, but Operation Economic Fury continues, and the effective and successful naval blockade continues as well of ships and vessels that are moving to and from Iranian ports. We are completely strangling their economy through this blockade. They're losing $500 million a day. The Karg Island is completely full. They can't move oil in and out. They can't even pay their own people as a result of this economic leverage that President Trump has inflicted over them. So he's satisfied with that as we await their response, and we will see. The president has not set a firm deadline to receive an Iranian proposal, unlike some of the reporting I've seen today. Ultimately, the timeline will be dictated by the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States.
That says it all, guys. Now look, we've seen talks start, we've seen them pause, then start again. But here's the thing. The squeeze never stops. And compare that to what we had before. Remember Biden renewing all the sanction waivers for Iran, money flowing, the usual experts telling us that somehow funding our enemies was the sophisticated move. It was, some sort of 4D chess, guys. We couldn't understand it. We didn't know why we were shutting down American oil while importing from the world's leading state sponsor of terror. We weren't sure why we would do that and take oil from Venezuela, a regime we didn't even recognize, but not from our own ground. It was insanity then, and it looks even crazier now. Because now the red lines are actually clear. Check this out.
Does the president view that as a violation of the ceasefire?
No, because these were not U.S. ships. These were not Israeli ships. These were two international vessels. And for the American media, who is sort of blowing this out of proportion to discredit the president's facts that he has completely obliterated Iran's conventional navy, these two ships were taken by speedy gunboats. Iran has gone from having the most lethal navy in the Middle East to now acting like a bunch of pirates. They don't have control over the strait. This is piracy that we are seeing on display. And the naval blockade that the United States has imposed continues to be incredibly effective. And to be clear, the blockade is on ships going to and from Iranian ports. And the point of this is the economic leverage that we maintain over Iran now. While there's a ceasefire with respect to the military and kinetic strikes, Operation Economic Fury continues. And the crux of that is this naval blockade. We are choking their economy. We are strangling their main source of revenue. They can't pay their own people. They're losing $500 million every single day. Karg Island is completely full of oil because they can't transport it to and from. So the president, the cards are in his hands. The United States maintains control over the situation. He has all of the leverage. And again, that's why he's maintained a little bit of flexibility with the extension of the ceasefire as we await a unified response from the Iranians to the president's very clear proposal.
And remember, this has been going on for 47 years. This is about trade routes. This is about China. This is about Russia. This is about a lot of things. And I get it. We don't want endless conflict. But it's the failed globalist class that gave us endless conflict by coddling our enemies for far too long.
As far as the formal negotiations, humanitarian issues are of a great concern to this president. But with respect to the negotiations that are ongoing, he's made his red lines very clear. Iran could never obtain a nuclear bomb to threaten the United States and our allies, and they must turn over the enriched uranium that's in their possession. While it is very far into the ground, thanks to the success of Operation Midnight Hammer, it's important to the president that they hand that enriched uranium over. He's made that quite clear to them. And now we're waiting to hear back from the Iranian regime. The fact that they cannot send a unified message yet, which is why the president decided to extend the ceasefire, just shows how effective Operation Epic Fury truly was, because there's a lot of internal division over there. The president understands that, and so we await their response.
If anyone thought the ceasefire extension meant weakness, we appear to have an answer to that as well. Watch.
Iranian ports is just suffocating Iran's economy. The U.S. says they've now turned away more than 30 ships. The president says that blockade is actually more effective than bombing, costing Tehran $500 million every single day.
And the administration is keeping up the pressure despite extending the Iran ceasefire. The president giving an update on the situation in the Strait moments ago, as the White House says it is giving the diminished regime time to gather itself.
President Trump announced an extension of the ceasefire. He's maintaining and generously offering a bit of flexibility to a regime who has been completely tarnished because of Operation Epic Fury. There's obviously a lot of internal division. This is a battle between the pragmatists and the hardliners in Iran right now. Ultimately, the timeline will be dictated by the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States.
And Brian Yanis is joining us live from Tel Aviv, Israel this morning. Hi, Brian.
Bill, good morning. Well, the president just posted on Truth Social saying that the United States will triple its efforts in clearing the Strait of Hormuz of Iranian mines. This comes after the Pentagon told Congress that it'll take at least 6 months after the war has ended to clear the Strait of Hormuz of those mines. The president writing, quote, "I have ordered the United States Navy to shoot and kill any boat, small boats though they may be, that is putting mines in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. There is to be no hesitation. Additionally, our minesweepers are clearing the strait right now." Meanwhile, economic pressure on Iran continues.
There's a reason our adversaries are nervous right now. It's not because we're weaker. It's because they got used to weakness. And now they're dealing with something they haven't seen in a long time. Strength, toughness, courage, resolve. Really, a White House that doesn't blink. They're watching an America that's pumping again, drilling again, exporting again, the kind of energy dominance that doesn't just power our economy, it rewrites the leverage map of the entire planet. Every barrel we produce is a barrel Tehran and Moscow can't sell. Every LNG tanker leaving the Gulf Coast is a thumb on the scale against anyone who thought they had us over a barrel, quite literally. And we remember that the alternative looked like, okay? We remember the Biden administration that renewed a sanctioned waiver worth $10 billion to the Islamic Republic of Iran. 6 weeks before, an Iran-backed drone killed 3 American soldiers in Jordan. And the money kept flowing. We remember that same administration extending the same waiver again, literally 2 days after the 24 election, 2 days after the American people voted them out of office. Just 2 days, okay? A lame duck parting gift to the Ayatollahs, delivered while the movers were already loading up the trucks, along with, the other pallets of cash, I guess. That's the part the regime media always seems to forget. A gift to our enemies that trampled every norm. A gift that the career bureaucrats didn't even want to sign off on. The same people Democrats claim to love, but they got bullied. They got threatened. They got told to sit down and shut up and fill the coffers of our adversaries anyway. I mean, just think about how insane that actually is. That's how it's worked forever. That's how it worked then. That's the posture, and we're done with it. That's the doctrine we've buried. That's what our enemies are staring down tonight. And this strength matters. Our own border, more than ever before, especially to Mexico, actually matters again. Because when 2 Americans are dead and fentanyl is still pouring across this country, the last thing anyone should hear from Mexico's political class is attitude. Check this out.
I think the president would agree that some sympathy from Claudia Sheinbaum would be well worth it for the 2 American lives that were lost, considering all that the United States of America is doing currently under this president to stop the scourge of drug trafficking through Mexico to the United States. And we have seen some cooperation from President Sheinbaum. I think the president always wants to see more cooperation when what we are doing is not only a benefit to the American people, but to her people as well, to crack down on these cartels and to remove, again, the scourge of drug and human trafficking that has flowed through Mexico for far too long and has taken far too many American lives.
This administration is doing the hard part. Interdictions, enforcement, pressure, cartels, crackdowns. The least Mexico's leadership could do is stop acting like outrage over dead Americans is somehow, impolite. Guess what? I imagine if it keeps happening, you're going to see a lot more impoliteness. If you want to know how deep this open border sickness goes, just look at California. Because Christopher Rufo dropped the scoop showing Gavin Newsom funded Oasis Legal Services. That's a taxpayer-backed NGO helping queer and trans migrants navigate asylum claims, with the group saying that 1 in 5 new clients of theirs is living with HIV. Gavin Newsom was literally funding a group that was trying to bring immigrants into America with HIV, right? As if just, uneducated, bad people, in many cases, wasn't bad enough. Drug dealers, human traffickers. No. Now we'll have some with HIV. What could go wrong? I mean, this is what the left means by compassion. Bringing in HIV-infected migrants into your neighborhood to then, I guess, get them to daycare contracts? I don't know. I guess that's probably the plan. Then other fake hospice contracts, then welfare, drug needles, and then tell you that you're racist for being outraged by it. Well, guess what? You're a moron if you're not outraged by it. Taxpayer-funded lawfare, activist NGOs, and a political machine that treats the border like a social engineering pipeline. They are not just refusing to stop the invasion. They are subsidizing. They are encouraging it. They are making it absolutely insane when you're bringing HIV-infested people into the country. And when normal Americans object, they act like you're the bad guy for noticing. No. If your state is helping import more strain on hospitals, more strain on social service, and more illegal immigration under the banner of ideology and HIV, that's not compassion. That's insanity that common sense Americans are ultimately forced to pay for. And while we're on the subject of moral insanity, this next story is so sick, it almost sounds fake, where a mentally ill, deranged trans father tried to take his kid to Cuba to get him trans surgery. Check this out.
So a wild and frankly disturbing story out of the state of Utah. A transgender woman and her partner are accused of kidnapping her child, allegedly to go take her to Cuba and get gender reassignment surgery. Madeline Rivera live in Washington with more on this. Maddie, what do we know?
Hey, good morning, Bill. So the case prompted the Justice Department to send a government plane to Cuba to bring the 10-year-old child back to the U.S. Federal officials say the child's biological father, Rose Inessa Ethington, who's now a transgender woman, and her partner took the 10-year-old for what was supposed to be a camping trip in Alberta, Canada, late last month. But they never made it to their hotel or campground. Instead, after crossing the Canadian border, the couple allegedly flew from Vancouver to Mexico City. Then they took another flight from Mexico to Havana. All of this happening, by the way, without the knowledge and permission of the child's biological mother. Court documents don't state whether Rose and her partner were actually planning on getting the child gender-affirming surgery in Cuba, but the FBI says they found notes at the couple's home with instructions from a D.C. mental health therapist to, quote, send the therapist the $10,000 and instructions on gender-affirming medical care for children. Rose's partner had withdrawn that exact amount in late March, per the complaint. Family members of the 10-year-old boy say they were worried Rose had manipulated him to identify as a girl. Rose's brother tells the New York Times she had been pushing for the child to get transition surgery since he was 5 years old. This seemed to be clearly all be coming from Rose. Rose's brother says it was heartbreaking and hard for me to see. Rose and her partner have been charged with federal international parental kidnapping laws. They'll face the remainder of their court case in Utah. Bill.
I mean, this one is beyond sick. And yet another example of trans violence and abuse. A father trying to use Cuba as some sort of ideological safe house to get around American law so he can do sick medical experimentation on his child. Think about that. That's where this whole movement goes when nobody stops it. If we don't get in the way, if we don't get involved, if we don't spread this word, that's going to become the norm. That's what they're going to try to do day in and day out. It's not compassion. They want control. And the same people who lecture us every day about protecting children are always weirdly comfortable when the child is the one getting sacrificed to the ideology. That tells you everything. And nowhere is the human cost of all this left-wing lunacy more obvious than all the illegal immigrant criminals let in under Biden. Take Sherman Gorman, 18-year-old kid, just murdered by an illegal alien, a family destroyed, and a completely preventable death. And now the family is speaking out.
On March 19th, Gorman and her friends went to catch a glimpse of the northern lights on Lake Michigan at around 1:30 a.m. They were just about a block and a half from campus, but as Gorman reached the end of this pier, she encountered a masked gunman.
He, moved towards her threateningly. She turned around and she warned her friends that there was a man with a gun and you need to run, and they ran. She ran. She made it
40 feet.
But she made it 40 feet, and he shot her in the back. Came out her neck.
And
she saved her friends.
What?
I don't know. Presumably, we heard that. They say it was a senseless tragedy. It wasn't. It was a murder. It was a preventable murder.
Police arrested 26-year-old Jose Medina, a Venezuelan who authorities say entered the country illegally. His lawyer says her client lost a portion of his brain and skull after he was robbed and shot in the head in Colombia in 2018.
His lawyer said he had the mental capacity of a child.
He had the mental capacity and the wherewithal to buy a gun, to have a mask on, and to be waiting. The mask was on, and he had a gun pointed at my daughter when she passed him.
A child does not do that.
A man does not
shoot a retreating child in the back.
The Department of Homeland Security says Medina was first apprehended by U.S. Border Patrol in May of 2023 and released into the country under the Biden administration. And just over a month later, they say he was caught shoplifting in Chicago, arrested, and released again. An arrest warrant was issued after he didn't show up for court.
Tell me about the policies that you think made this happen.
Honestly, we're really still trying to explore that.
Clearly, there needs to be some cooperation between state and local government and federal officials. When someone commits a crime and they've been here illegally, there needs to be cooperation. He was arrested for, yes, a nonviolent crime, but he also was here illegally. In our mind, he should have been handed over to the feds at that point.
That's the argument right there. Not some think tank white paper, not cable news, food fights. A dead American girl, a grieving family, and years of politicians telling you border enforcement was a cruel position. No. What's cruel is letting criminals in and pretending the costs get paid by somebody else. What's cruel is telling citizens that their suffering is just part of some abstract moral project. What's cruel is building a politics where the criminals matter more than the victims. You've seen that. You don't hear the Democrats coming out for the victims of these, and yet they seem to always have the backs of the criminals, even if they had 30-page rap sheets. It doesn't matter. The cartels matter more than the families. The NGOs matter more than the citizens. Not anymore, folks, because that's really the theme of this whole show. Frauds are getting exposed. And it's why the SPLC story in particular is such a big one. It's yet another conspiracy theory proved true. We knew what they were doing, but now we have some cold, hard proof. So to add to the list of all the other conspiracy theories that were actually totally true, here's another one, folks. Guys, stay on this, okay? Make sure it gets out. I mean, what little cable news I watch, I haven't seen this stuff out there. It doesn't get put out there. Make sure you're sharing the news. Thank you always, as always, for tuning in. Make sure to keep getting the message out. You guys are the front line of the fence, okay? We do this to get it out there, but we need your help. Keep staying on the offense, okay? The entire left-wing racket is being exposed piece by piece, and now, with the FBI and the DOJ going after them, we can get some of the accountability we've been screaming about for years. It's actually happening, guys, but you need to be a part of that. Make sure you're subscribing so you never miss an episode. Check out our incredible sponsors down below and in the video description. Invest in the next generation with YRefi and be a part of the solution for millions of Americans. With YRefi, you're helping borrowers while investing in the future. YRefi offers accredited investors fixed-rate returns backed by private student loans. Choose a term from 1 to 5 years. Take your monthly interest as income or reinvest it. Totally your choice. To learn more, preview the private placement memo for complete details and call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST. Like, share, subscribe, download the Rumble app on your smart TV so you can watch with your whole family and everyone can see it. But hit the little like button right now, okay? Do it right now. It's that easy. Share it with your friends as soon as you log off. Just send it to, any of your political text threads, whatever it is. Just get the word out. So, as always, guys, stay strong, stay engaged, stay informed, and always stay a little bit triggered. Guys, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you all again very soon.